今回の動画では自分の英語に自信がなくても会話が自然と続く方法がわかります。Hey there! アーサーです。英語をたくさん学んできた。フレーズや文法自体は知っているけれど、いざ英語で会話をするとなると。So, Natsume, what did you do today?
Nothing much.
Okay. 会話が続かないんです。そんな経験ありませんか？英語を勉強している日本人の方の多くはこう考えてしまうんです。やっぱり単語力が足りない。文法をもっと勉強しなきゃ。リスニングが弱いからだ。僕は日本語を勉強していた時、まさにそう思ってたんですね。でもね、ここがすごく大事なポイントなんですけど、実はそれを考えれば考えるほど英語での会話が続かなくなるんです。あなたに本当に実際に英語を話せるようになってほしいと思います。だから今回の動画では、1、会話が続かない本当の理由となぜ勉強しても会話力が伸びないのか。2、英語で会話が続くようになるたった一つの鍵。3、英語で会話を続けるための具体的なステップを一緒に学びたいと思います。よろしくお願いします。So, why is it that when many English learners come to have a conversation, the conversation doesn't continue? Well, many people, when they first reserve consultation calls with me, they say it's because they don't have enough vocabulary. They don't know enough grammar. But honestly, that doesn't help that much. When I was learning Japanese, I was really bad at conversation. Well, I was bad at conversation in English too, but I had a dream of speaking Japanese. So for 4 years, I bought 17 textbooks and I studied vocabulary and grammar every day. I memorized the grammar rules. But when I went to Japan for a homestay and came face to face with my host mother, I couldn't say anything. Well, why was that? It wasn't because I didn't know enough words. I had studied for 4 years. It was because I had forgotten what conversation actually is. See, when I was studying Japanese, I was focusing so much on the words and grammar, trying to speak correctly, trying to use the right word, that I had forgotten the most important part of conversation. What did I want to say? You know, the purpose of language isn't to say words correctly. 単純に言葉を口に出すのではなく、心の中のイメージ、気持ち、情報、いわばメッセージを相手に伝えることです。コミュニケーションです。And I had focused so much on words and grammar that I never really thought about actually using them in conversation. And you know, this is why a lot of Japanese English learners I talk with have troubles with real conversation. They focus so much on the right words, the right grammar, making the right sentence, that they forget even what they want to talk about. They forget the purpose of the conversation. They forget what they want to say, what they want to know. So the conversation just stops. You know, this is kind of similar to when people start learning to cook. You know, they go to a store and randomly buy a bunch of ingredients they like. Oh, this ingredient is high quality. Oh, this one looks good. Then they come home and put all the ingredients on the kitchen counter and think, okay, let's cook. Oh, but what do you start with? You haven't even thought of a recipe. You haven't even thought about what you want to eat.
何してんの？
I have the ingredients. I'm gonna cook.
何作んの今日？
わかんないな。
なんで？
Words and grammar are like the ingredients in cooking. If you want to cook well, before you get ingredients, you have to think about what you want to eat and what recipe will make what you want to eat. And it's the same thing in conversation. In order to have a conversation, the key is to think about the conversation. Think about the other person, not about your English. Instead of thinking about the words you should use, first think, What do I want to talk about? What do I want to share? What do I want to know about the other person? I see this a lot with my students. When they first start having conversations with me, they freeze and think, 何を話したらいいんだろう。言葉が出てこない。And what do we do in that situation? Well, I tell them, 何を話したらいいんじゃなくて、何を話したいのか。僕について何が知りたいのか。まあ、僕について知りたいことがなかったら大丈夫なんだけど、ちょっと寂しいけどね。And then we have a laugh and they focus on the conversation, not their English. And they start to have a lot of fun speaking. Now, when people hear this for the first time, a lot of them think, oh, wait, but really, I don't have enough vocabulary. I need to learn more. もっと勉強したらいいんじゃない? And yeah, sure, if you have almost zero English knowledge, knowing vocabulary is important. But, and this is a big but. I have a big but not that one. If you're watching this video right now, which is in English, your vocabulary and grammar is enough. The real danger is that any more studying actually pushes you away from what you should be doing. It makes it harder to have conversations, not easier. And why is that? Well, it's because the more we study correct words and phrases, the more our brain gets reinforced with this idea, 正しい英語を使わないと. And we go right back into a mindset that focuses on using correct words and grammar and not on conversation. And because of that, the conversation stops. Now that we understand the most important part of conversation, let's get into the specifics. How to actually continue conversations in English. There are 4 steps that I recommend to everyone. The first step is ask a question. And this is where lots of people get stuck. They think, what question should I ask? Is this okay? And the answer? Well, what do you want to know? Before you think, what should I say or what word should I use, you should think, what do I want to know from this person? And if you honestly want to know, it's not going to be bad if you ask them. So if you're ever stuck and you start feeling 焦っている, take a breath and think, okay, what do I want to know about this person? And then let's practice this together. For example, I'll say to you, I went to Kyoto last week. Now, when you hear that, what questions come up? Do you want to know anything about that, my experience in Kyoto? Well, if not, that's okay. The conversation is over. 寂しいな。Alright, 夏、僕のことについて知りたいこと、聞きたいことはないの？
ないです。
Huh? But seriously, if your friend tells you they went to Kyoto, what do you want to know? Oh, nice. What did you do there? Oh, really? What was your favorite part? Oh, cool. Was it your first time? Look at these sentences. These are simple questions. You already know these words. The questions themselves are not difficult. It's getting into the mindset of not focusing on English, but focusing on the other person that can be difficult at first. And this skill of asking questions is what I call 主導力. And it's one of the first skills we work on in IU-Connect. At first, it may not come natural, but the more you try it, the more you focus on the other person, the more naturally questions will come. All right, that was step 1. Now let's look at step 2. Respond with something about yourself. If you just ask questions, well, it's not a conversation, it's an interview, right? So Natsuki, what'd you eat for lunch today?
カレー食べたよ。
Oh, cool. Where'd you eat it?
家で食べたよ。
Oh, cool. Who made it?
私が作ったけど。
Yeah, how was it?
なんでそんな質問してんの？
The next step is to share something about yourself after they answer. And that's what makes it feels like a conversation. And this is actually one of the most important points for making a conversation open up. Like, for example, So Natsumi, how was your week?
Oh, it was good. I went to Kyoto.
Oh, really? I love Kyoto. I went to Kyoto last week. The key is that it's related to what the other person says. Otherwise, it won't make any sense. Hey, Natsumi, how was your week?
It was good. I went to Kyoto.
Oh, really? That's great. I love pizza. Yes. For many people, this doesn't come naturally. Talking about yourself can be difficult, but it's a skill just like anything. And the more you practice, the better you'll get. And what happens when you do this? Well, the other person gets interested in you. They start making comments, asking questions back, and the conversation starts to flow even more naturally. You're not carrying the conversation alone anymore. It builds itself. In fact, just this morning, I got a message from one of my students, Kei-san, talking about this skill, which we call otoryoku in U-Connect. Before we had a conversation and she kept on asking me questions, but nothing really continued. So I told her to start sharing about herself more. And when she did it with one of her talk pals, the conversation went a lot better. Here's a message she sent me this morning. 自分の方から自分の話をしたら、そこから会話が広がって話ができました。今までは自分のことは聞かれない限り話してなかったんですが、もっと話していこうと思います。At first, it may not come natural, but the more you try it, the more you share about yourself, the more conversation will open up naturally. So now we have steps 1 and 2, and you can have a conversation and keep it going with these 2 steps. But sometimes things go wrong. You want to say something, but you don't know how to say it in English. Or the other person says something and you have no idea what they just said. 全く聞き取れないこともありますよね。These moments feel like the conversation is about to crash, but it doesn't have to. Steps 3 and 4 are about getting back on track when problems come up. The first step, step 3, is 英語の言い方がわからないとき. Sometimes when you're talking, you want to say something, but you don't know the English word. 例えばですね、How are you? と聞かれたら、ぼちぼちと答えたいんだけど、ぼちぼちしてるって英語でなんて言うのと気になりますよね。The conversation doesn't need to stop here. You can explain what you want to say in simpler words and keep the conversation going. And this is a skill I call 説明力, like I shared in this video. I didn't know the word 扇風機 one time, so to my friend, I said, あそこにある風を作るもの. And they understood me and told me the word 扇風機. Most of the time, they'll tell you the way to say the word naturally, just like when my friend said 扇風機. So this keeps the conversation going while also improving your vocabulary. But that's for you speaking English, right? Well, what if you can't hear what the other person says? Well, the conversation doesn't need to stop here either. Think about this. When you're speaking Japanese with a Japanese person, do you catch every single word 100% of the time? No, right? Well, sometimes you mishear or sometimes they mumble. And when that happens, you don't think, 僕の日本語力が最悪. You just check with what they said, right?
今日カムに行ってきてさ。
ごめん、もう一回言ってくれる？
もう一回？
さっき言ったこともう一回言ってくれる？
さっき言ったこと？
No! And you can do the exact same thing in English. You can just say, sorry, what was that? Or could you say that again? Or what do you mean by that? And that's it. You check what they said, you confirm it, and then keep on going with questions and responses. That's 確認力. A real conversation is not a test. Nobody expects you to catch every word. If you miss something, you just confirm it. And if there's a misunderstanding, you fix it. That is the conversation. So here we learned the 4 steps for conversation. But remember, the most important thing about continuing a conversation isn't your English. It's about focusing on the other person, thinking about what do I want to know? What do I want to share? The problem is that traditional English learning focuses so much on words and grammar that people forget the purpose of what English really is, and that's communication. Now, after watching this video, a lot of people might think, あ、了解しました。わかった。And, that's great, but I want to be honest with you. Understanding these steps in your head and being able to actually do it in a real conversation is completely different. 英語をたくさん学ぶのに、いきなり外国人の対面したら頭が真っ白になって言葉が出てこないことが多いんですよね。それは英語のフレーズや文法は知っているかもしれないけど、日本語みたいな実際に話す感覚がないから言葉が出てこないんですね。で、具体的にどうしたらその話す感覚を身につけられるかっていうと、この動画でシェアすると長くなるので、心から学びたい方のためにいつでも見れる無料動画講座でシェアしています。もしあなたは今の英語学習で満足しているのであれば、全然問題ないんです。ぜひこちらの動画をご覧ください。I think it's here. でもですね、今日の話を実践したい、英語を実際に話せるようになりたいと思っているのであれば、ぜひ今回の無料動画講座にお申し込みください。メールでお届けするので、ここをタップするか、概要欄にあるリンクをタップするか、ぜひ無料で登録してください。As always, enjoy your English adventures and I'll see you in the next video. これからも一緒に世界とつながりましょう。See you next time. Bye. Oh, really? That's great. I love pizza. Yes. This is good.